Music there from Amaryllis, Mary Halvorson's album and band. The track 892 Teeth there was the track that we heard. This is Trivial Thursdays on WRFL, and I'm happy to be here with you and to have Singletary Center Director Matt Gibson here. He's a regular, so Matt, I won't extend too much cordiality to you, but I absolutely want to welcome Mary Halvorson to the show. A trailblazing contemporary jazz guitarist, composer, band leader. Your sound is instantly recognizable. To me, it sounds like Looney Tunes cartoons, which I feel like you might like the sound of that. And Mary, welcome to Trivial Thursday. So nice to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We heard 892 teeth there, or is it 892 teeth? And what are these 892 teeth that we're talking about in that song?
What are they? That's an excellent question. I guess they're whatever you want them to be. No, titling is something I enjoy, and I have like a long database of titles. And when I'm writing a tune, I'll kind of go through it and say, which one fits with that tune. And it really doesn't mean anything. It was something that popped into my head that I thought sounded kind of cool, and just instinctively, I thought it worked with that tune.
I love that you keep a database of song titles without songs to go with them yet. I
Yeah.
think that's kind of
And
great.
some of them aren't very good. Some of them will end up being rejects, but I'll go through and look for titles. I'm kind of adding to it on a weekly basis.
It reminds me a little bit of seeing abstract art in a museum and then kind of chuckling knowingly about it when you look at the title, which is like Untitled Number Three or something like that. Mary, you're like we said, this is from Matt. I swear I'll talk to you in a minute. Um, Mary, this is from the album Amaryllis, which is your most recent album, but it's also the name of your ensemble, right?
It is the name of the ensemble, and actually, that's from our first record.
Oh, okay.
Um, and the most recent one is called About Ghosts, which was
Oh,
released
I got those
in
two mixed
June.
up. Okay, I
Oh,
played something from that earlier.
yeah. But the one you just played, yeah, that was from the self-titled album.
Okay, and these ensembles. I wanted to ask you the worst question in the world, which is, what is jazz? I'm not going to do that. But I will ask you, what is jazz to you in 2025? Like, it's such a broad spanning term. I've seen you at the Big Ears Festival
Mhm.
and lots of other people there, and there is a lot of music that gets called jazz.
Yes.
Is that what you would call your music?
No, probably not. I would say it's influenced by jazz. It's influenced by a lot of other things too, but jazz is, I studied jazz. I grew up listening to jazz. It was very formative for me. Yeah, I wouldn't consider it jazz exactly, I guess, although it really depends on how you define jazz, and everybody does that differently. So,
Right.
I mean, I don't really know. If people want to call it jazz, that doesn't offend me. And if people want to say, this has very little to do with jazz, that doesn't offend me either.
Mary Halvorson is here. Delighted to get to visit with you. Singletary Center Director Matt Gibson is here too. Matt, what is jazz? I'm sorry. You don't have to answer that if you don't want to. Uh, Maybe we can talk about
Yeah,
how you became aware of Mary's music and how you decided to have her come play at the Singletary Center, which is this Saturday, right?
yeah. Well, if I would just call Mary's music creative music, which I think is like a nice blanket term that really focuses on just the thought of making something different and creative outside of genre and kind of like all the constraints that come with like trying to do jazz or rock or any one particular thing. Yeah, like you, Mick, I got to first see Mary play down in Knoxville at the Big Ears Festival, and have been able to do that a couple times, and was just like blown away by the sense of improvisation and spontaneity, but also like how interesting the compositions were. And so when Mary started working with an agency out of Chicago that I had been pulling some acts from for our season, I just thought that was a fantastic opportunity to reach out and to make this happen. So I'm totally stoked for Saturday. It's yeah, really glad to be bringing this group to the Military Center into Lexington.
That's Matt Gibson, director of the Singletary Center. And Mary, I think you're going to be happy with the facility. He runs a pretty tight ship there.
Amazing. I'm very excited.
And this
Thank
is
you for
just as a
having
note,
me.
this is not your first time in Lexington. As a matter of fact, you played at a beloved local institution, no longer with us, the Morris Bookshop,
Yes.
a good number of years ago.
Yeah, I think somebody just reminded me, I think that was 2009.
Hmm.
So it was
So
quite
welcome
a
back.
while. Yeah, I'm really excited. It's been a minute, and I do remember that bookstore though, and I remember that it was a very special place. I'm sorry to hear that it's no longer.
I think its tenure was just as long as its owner maybe wanted it to be. I'm not sure.
Right.
I may be speaking out of turn there. He is a dear friend of mine.
Hmm.
Uh, I wanted to ask about like how your ensemble, and don't worry, I'm not going to ask what's jazz again. How your ensemble, how does it work? Because like Matt might agree with me when you see the level of performance that's happening these days in music that let's call it creative music.
Hmm.
There's improvisation involved. There's composition involved. You are a composer, um, and the track that we heard just a minute ago, most of the guitar was towards the end,
Hmm.
but like your ensemble isn't one that's designed necessarily to showcase you.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. I haven't designed it that way. I think what I try to do is write the music, give it to the musicians, and then at that point, it's a democracy. I really want to feature everybody in the group equally and find moments for different people in the group to be featured. And so I feature myself as well, but I feature myself no more than I do anybody else. And it's really nice. And the other thing I do in this group is I don't dictate who improvises where. So if there's a solo spot, it might be a vibraphone solo one night, and then maybe the next night we play the same tune and it's a trumpet solo. And people do tend to have favorite spots, but if you're touring for a week, let's say we're playing the same tune every night, maybe it's a vibraphone solo for the first three nights, and then on the fourth night the trombone player said, maybe I'll step in there. So it's kind of interesting to see how these things change and evolve, but it's fun for me to be surprised and to kind of just step back and see what happens.
I was about to say it sounds like you enjoy being surprised. Not everyone does.
I do, it's true.
Mary Halvorson is here, the jazz guitarist, the creative music guitarist, we'll say. And you do have this. It's funny that your name is at the top of the bill. The group is treated as a kind of collective, and maybe democratic's not the right word, but
Mhm.
but your guitar tone, which some people call liquid or elastic, I call it Looney Tunes. It is so particular. It is so often non-guitarish that I think it's interesting for you to lead an ensemble where you are not principally featuring yourself, and also when you do play, if people are listening, they may not realize that's a guitar. The
Right.
only person I can compare this to is Adrian Belew in some ways.
Right. I mean, yeah, with the guitar, it's kind of cool because I think of it as like a shape-shifting instrument, especially the electric guitar. You can hear it through all different genres. I mean, there's a zillion different tones and ways you can approach sound. But for me, I enjoy the duality of having a big archtop guitar and having a really strong acoustic sound. So you can hear that part of it, you can hear there's a guitar. But then part of the fun of electric guitar is you have pedals and you can mess up the sound and kind of turn it into something else. So I like that duality and I like being able to hear both of those things. So yeah, at some points it might kind of sound like something else, and you'll probably also hear moments where it sounds very much like a guitar.
Hmm. Mary Halvorson is here. She's performing at the Singletary Center on Saturday, and we're here also with Matt Gibson, the director of the Singletary Center. This is in the concert hall, and I think it's
Recital
just.
hall.
Oh, it's in the recital hall. Okay, this is in the recital hall. Um, Both great venues. Let's see. I wanted to maybe ask you about what did I want to ask you about? So, as a composer, or as you say you talk about coming up with guitar sounds and whatnot. do they sometimes originate in your head and you're like, let's see if I can do this on guitar, or maybe you hear them through 14 pedals on guitar and think that's cool, I need to save that for a future reference. How do you catalog like this kind of array of sort of crazy sounds that come out of your instrument?
I mean, it's
Sorry to be so
I guess
technical.
it's just kind of years of experimenting with stuff, and when you hear something, when you do something you like, you think, what was that? And then try to really hone in on that and develop it and incorporate it into your language. So I think for me, it's a process, and that could be a very simple thing, like some kind of way that I pluck the strings on the guitar, or it could be some effect that I discovered, could have discovered accidentally on an effects pedal, but then it is important to me to be in control of what I'm playing. So if I play like some crazy sound, I don't want it to be because I was trying to do something else and messed up. I want it to be purposeful. Although
Right.
mistakes are great and cool things can grow out of those as well.
I feel like a lot of the kind of music, not that there is a specific kind, but again, this is sort of a big ears comment. A lot of the sort of uh, tier of music that you and a variety of your peers perform really embraces the notion of mistakes
Hmm.
being made in a kind of way. Now, maybe this has always been true. I had a wonderful jazz class when I was in college, and a teacher, Dr. Ron Penn, who's kind of a Kentucky celebrity, he played some Miles Davis for us and said, "My question to you, does Miles Davis ever play a wrong note?" And I thought that was interesting because it begged this question of like, well, I guess you just make the wrong note into the right note.
Exactly. Exactly. No, I'm a big fan of mistakes because I mean the way I was taught too by my teacher and mentor Anthony Braxton was that if you're not making mistakes, something's wrong. Because if you're not making mistakes, you're not taking any kind of chances, and if you're not taking chances, then you're not doing it. You're not developing anything. You're not, So I think I was always taught not to play it safe.
Well, and this begs a question that I had last night as I was falling asleep, which is, so playing this sort of caliber of improvisational music, is it ever scary?
Um, that's an interesting question. I guess I never thought about it that way. I definitely have moments where maybe it's a new project and I've written a bunch of stuff and I'm not sure if it's going to work, and I could be a little nervous about that. Um, but I don't know. I guess I don't. I guess scary wouldn't be the word I would use to describe it. I think usually I'm more excited, and that could be a nervous excitement at times.
Yeah. Okay. Mary Halvorson is here, and Matt Gibson from the Singletary Center. Matt, I'm holding you at a distance because we have a whole other thing to talk about. but please chime in at any point. Let's see,
Well,
Mary. Go ahead. Yeah, are we
oh
good?
well, yeah. Well, I actually have a question for Mary about
Please.
on the new record for the first time. Maybe you're incorporating saxophone with
Mhm,
Emmanuel Wilkins joining in the group, and
mhm.
we're bringing him to the Singletary Center in March to do his Blues Blood project. But I just
Right.
wondered if you had any comments about working with Emmanuel and kind of like folding in some new instrumentation to the group.
Yeah, I mean, he is just phenomenal. And yeah, when I was thinking about adding saxophones as special guests on this record, for alto, he was the first person that popped into my head, and I was really hearing his sound on the record. And so I was lucky enough that he agreed to do it, and it was really just a special experience working with him on this. And I'm really glad you're having his group back. That's going to be amazing, I'm sure.
Cool.
Let's see, Mary. You started out on violin, is that right?
Yes.
And and then came to guitar. Do you remember the first as a failed guitar player? I have to ask. Do you remember the first guitar riff you learned, or the first thing you learned on guitar?
Yep. Predictably, Stairway to Heaven.
Yes. I was gonna bet on that or Iron Man. Um, let's see. So, what about when it when you do you compose on guitar?
I do.
Okay. Um, And so you are. Do you think of yourself as a guitarist who composes, or a composer who happens to play guitar?
Um, Probably the former. I guess, I've always thought of myself as a guitar player. Although, you know, I think throughout the last 15 years or so, I've been composing more and more. But I see the two things as connected. Like even when I compose, that's starting with improvising on guitar.
Hmm. I wanted to. I think we can play a little bit. I've got Polyhedral pulled up here from the new
Hmm.
record because I felt bad because I want to play something from your new record. Um, so can we listen to Polyhedral real quick?
Yeah.
And yes, I did pick it partially because it's brief and our time is brief. So
Yeah, it's basically the radio edit.
yeah, a little bit. So this is a little bit more Mary Halvorson and her ensemble Amaryllis with Polyhedral. Yeah, Mary Halvorson there with Polyhedral from the album. Where did it go? About Ghosts. Yeah, About Ghosts. We're here. This is Trivial Thursdays, and we're here with guitarist Mary Halvorson and Singletary Center director Matt Gibson for just a couple more minutes. So, Mary, again, thanks for visiting with us on the show. It's great to have you here, and I look forward to your show on Saturday, and your return to Lexington. So when we listen to Polyhedral, is there anything that you would say about Polyhedral in terms of the way it's assembled? Some people talk about jazz as a conversation between musicians. Is that a term that you would use for how something like this works, or would you use a different term for like how you all play together?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do think it's always a conversation. I think with this piece in particular, it was one of the later pieces I wrote for the album. And when you're putting together an album, one of the things I think about is what's missing, like what are the other songs like, and how can I write a song that's not the same as those songs? So a lot of the songs I decided, had multiple sections and like all kinds of different stuff happening. And I had the idea I want to write something really short and simple, not in the sense of actually what I wrote, but just something kind of short and crazy. So polyhedral would, like I'm thinking about like a die, and everybody has a part that's kind of different that's happening at the same time. So there's sort of these different metric things happening simultaneously, but it's just very brief. And then there's a solo section, which in this case was vibraphone, and then just a little reprise of the melody, which probably is about 25 seconds long. So yeah, I almost thought of the piece as like a little interruption or just a short little vignette.
That's Mary Halvorson talking about music from her album About Ghosts, which is her most recent release with the ensemble Amaryllis playing at the Singletary Center on Saturday here in Lexington. Um, Mary, are you ever inspired to write songs about things that don't have to do with music, art, painting, books? Do you ever see things that you think, okay, this gives me an idea?
Yes, but not really. I feel like it's not so literal. I feel like, there's tons of stuff that I'm seeing all the time. If I go to a museum or, I was at the botanical gardens the other day, which by the way, plant names are pretty incredible if you're if you're ever looking for song title ideas. But you
Amaryllis
see
is one of
things.
my favorites because it makes me think of my mom, who, Amaryllis is kind of a Christmas
Oh
plant, I
yeah.
think. But yeah, and I
Yeah, they're
love the word
beautiful.
too. The word too is great.
Exactly. And what's cool about that is that they're poisonous. So I like the idea of having a something that's both beautiful and poisonous at the same time. That was part of the reasoning behind that name. But yes, things influence you all the time, and I think for me the idea is to let everything seep in without it being too direct. So you have all these influences, things are seeping in, some of them are musical, some of them aren't. So it's almost like you have a kaleidoscope of different things going in, and then you just try to channel that into something hopefully
Um,
coherent.
I know we got to let you go here in a second. But I just thought of something. You've collaborated with John Zorn quite a bit, and I'm a longtime fan of John Zorn. Uh, I saw Naked City many years ago in at the Ohio State University, and I believe because of the subscription ticket sort of situation, there were people who had tickets to the whole season.
Right.
And Naked City played a couple of songs, and then John Zorn said one of the funniest things I've ever heard at a concert. He stepped to the mic and he said, "After intermission, half of you will be gone."
I love it.
And so I just wanted to ask if there's anything that you would say to people who are coming to the show on Saturday who maybe are utterly unfamiliar with your music, maybe subscription ticket holders.
I guess I would say, treat it like you're going to an art museum. Like, have you ever noticed if you're in a museum, there'll be people, they somehow go in with this mentality of like being really open. You're going to go into an exhibit that you've never seen before, maybe you don't understand it, but you just have these kind of open eyes, or you're checking everything out. Um, and for some reason with music, I think sometimes people form judgments more quickly. So I would just say, go into it with open ears and give it a shot. And also, there's no pressure to like it. I'm sure there'll be people there that don't like it, and I'm entirely comfortable with that.
Mary Halvorson, thank you so much for being on the show. Really appreciate getting to visit with you and listening to your music, and actually also watching you tromp around in Knoxville with your giant guitar. Somehow you were the one that I frequently would see you kind of tramping around with your
Yeah, well, that's
guitar.
because I was trying to get to as many shows as possible. So I was,
Right.
that, I mean, it's amazing. I probably saw 10 shows a day.
And congrats on coming back to Big Ears. This will be at least your third year, I think.
Yeah, third year in a row, actually.
Yeah.
Fourth year in a, this will be the fourth year in a row. Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel very lucky because it is one of my favorite festivals. As you know, it's pretty magical.